The shopkeeper was dismayed when a brand new business, much like his own, opened up next door and erected a huge sign which read "Best Deals." He was horrified when another competitor opened up on his right and announced with its arrival with an even larger sign that says "Lowest Prices." The shopkeeper panicked until he got an idea. He put the biggest sign of all over his shop that read "Main Entrance."
Love it. That's good.
We went through a huge growth in the 21st century, starting about 2005, 2006, and that's why Sam asked us to put on this presentation. So, just a quick overview. I'm not going to read the slides to you. Okay, this wireless thing is supposed to work. Okay. Before we entered into legislation for this, we were about 27,000 members statewide, based on a little over 240 clubs. The clubs in New York needed money. Our trail fund doesn't pay enough to maintain the trails and maintain equipment and purchase equipment and that kind of thing. So we depend on club membership. Another item that we noted was the grading of the workforce. As you notice here, there's anybody from Wisconsin here? The youth group you guys are doing? Fantastic. We've actually invited them to our forum next April to come and speak to our people. None of us are getting any younger. I mean, look at Matt Mead right there. You can tell. Another thing, we didn't have lines of communications with snowmobilers. We had, upwards well over 100,000 registrations and 27,000 members. So we modeled our legislation after New Hampshire's Senate Bill 315 that was implemented in 2002. And this was the birth of the Snowmobilers' Rights and Responsibilities Act in New York State, otherwise known as SARA. We sold this on 3 pillars: members, money, and communications. New York at first said, well, we can't really help you because we can't force anybody to join a private entity. But what they could do is legislate an enticement to join a private entity. So what we did was we moved our registration to $100 per sled from $45. Members of a NYSA, and NYSA is New York State Snowmobile Association, for those that don't know, affiliated club. If you were a member, your membership or your registration was discounted to $45. So a $55 savings per sled registered. Non-members, somebody that didn't want to join, we left theirs at $100 per registration. Part of that is $10 of every registration goes to New York State for operating expenses, administrative costs, that kind of thing with the Department of Motor Vehicles. The rest of the money goes into the trail fund. So whether you register as a member or not a member, the money still goes in the trail fund. We get $90 from non-member registrations. We also we agreed on at one of our forums on minimum club dues of $25 per club. The way that works is $20 goes to the club, $5 goes to the New York State Snowmobile Association as the family membership cost. And our dues still to this day are only $5 per member family. One of the things that we learned about was the law of unintended legislation. We had a couple of legislators introduce amendments to the act. One was to increase the minimum age of solo snowmobiling from the age of 10 to 14. I don't know about any of you. My wife would have killed me if I put my child on a snowmobile at 10 and said, have a fun day. So they moved that to 14. They also, for the first time, established a maximum statewide speed limit of 55 miles an hour. And we were told if we didn't accept that the bill would not pass. So 55 is pretty good compared to some of our sister and neighboring states' speed limits, and of course the province of Ontario also. worked with our lobbyists, we worked the Assembly, Senate, and State Governor's Office. We met with the DMV to resolve their concerns and get them on board with us. And then we did a letter, email, and fax campaign to all the above from our membership level. Oh, wait a minute, I missed a joke. Smith goes to his supervisor in the front office and says, "Boss, we're doing some heavy house cleaning at home tomorrow. My wife needs me to help with the attic and the garage, moving and hauling stuff. We're short-handed, Smith." The boss replies, "I can't give you the day off." He says, "Thanks, boss. I knew I could count on you."
Gary, I have a question.
Yes.
What kind of feedback, or the people that weren't members? I mean, we got complaints from people. We're trying to raise $15, and I mean, they were writing to the representatives, calling them, and did you get a lot of people that were against what you were trying to do?
No.
Or did you just not tell the people?
No, we did this with the support and the clubs on board. It's a multi-year process it took to do this. We brought all the clubs on board. We had all the clubs, for the most part, 100% with us. Some of them not quite, were uncomfortable with the minimum dues rate. But $25, once again, as Ed Klim said earlier, what's 25 bucks? But we did that, we built that as a floor so there wouldn't be anybody cutting the next door neighbor's throat, saying, well, I'll give you a membership for $20 and having a price war or something like that. And we did get all the clubs to buy off on it. We did get some pushback from people that were not members of clubs, but not significant, and they weren't organized. So we were able to push the legislation forward. We have a great lobbyist in Albany. These guys are fantastic. They know where every door leads. And actually, as you all know, Governor Cuomo is our current governor. His son, or his dad, Mario Cuomo, was our governor years ago. One of our lobbyists, as a young man, worked in the governor's mansion and hung out with Andy Cuomo. So we have another connection there. But these guys know where all the doors lead. They know how to unlock those doors and how to talk to the right people in the coat room and get things moving for us. That is incredibly, incredibly important if you're going to do any kind of legislation. So, the vote, 62 senators in New York, 62 voted yay. 150 assembly persons, 149 yay, 1 nay. But she was from New York City, and you know the old pace picante, New York City. Hurdles, and this talks to what you were asking about, institutional resistance. There are those that no matter what will say change is bad, and we did encounter that. We had to convince our board of directors. We had to convince our districts, which are the associations and federations across New York State. They had to convince the clubs, and the clubs had to convince their individual members. We had to convince the government, Department of Motor Vehicles. In New York State, any legislation that affects a government agency, the government agency gets to give a yay or nay whether they're going to support that legislation or not. I don't really agree with that, but that's the way New York State works. So we had to get buy-in from the Department of Motor Vehicles. We had to get buy-in from the Office of Parks, Recreation and Historic Preservation. Then we had to get assemblymen and senators, and then finally the governor. The vote in the Senate and the Assembly helped us convince the governor. Some of the things we also had to work for was member clubs. We had to design and build some type of membership system so that that people could present proof of membership when they registered their snowmobiles. We had an increase in workload. We ended up even hiring a part-time person during the membership season, which is basically from when snow flies to when it stops flying. And we had to reconcile memberships. There's you never know if there's a couple of ways to join our club. clubs through the membership system. You can join a club online through our membership site. Any club of your choice in New York State, you can join that club. Or at the club level, you can join, we have a thing that's called blank vouchers. The club can print up blank vouchers. They're responsible for controlling those vouchers. They can sell memberships and handprint the information on the blank vouchers. This is what one of our vouchers looks like. It's got UPC barcoded and it's got all the information. Member has to sign it and take it in to the DMV when they register their sled to provide proof that they are indeed a club member of a New York State Snowmobile Association affiliate. And yes, I'm the first member of my club that's rejoined for this season just so I could print a voucher for you. What is another joke? I got to talk to my speechwriters about this. The state of Florida had a problem. The drug busts over the years have filled their storage areas with marijuana. It was decided that their only option was to burn it, all of it, all the marijuana out of hand. On that eventual day, a huge amount of marijuana was torched. The fire raged and the smoke of the weed lifted in a large cloud. Just at this time, a flock of terns flew through the crowd. A group of forest rangers were sent out to assure the well-being of the terns. They followed the flock until they finally landed. The rangers, sneaking up on the terns, were able to observe them and issued a report that read, "Not a tern was left unstoned." So, this is where we went. We started out 26,000 members, 2005-06 season. Our first year of implementation, we jumped to 52,000 member families. Then we went to 66, and then 69.7, and then 70,050, and then 69,325. All the last 3 years are recession years, and yet we still made gains or very minor losses. This past season, 53,846 at the end of the season. We had no snow. We had no rideable snow. And yet, we still had 53,846 members. Our registrations were down from 135,000 to 89,718 registrations. It's going to make this coming year a very tough year for us across New York State, because we're short about $2 million in our trail fund, and clubs are short 17,500 members spread across the state. So, problems. I'm sorry?
Do you mind being interrupted?
No, no.
This is probably a stupid question, but if you're out of state, how do you fit into this? You register your machine in Vermont. So how do you fit into this?
You can join a club online in New York State.
Any club.
Now, our DMV just rolled out several months ago. They just rolled out an online snowmobile registration system for out-of-state riders.
And when you say registration, in my mind it's motor vehicle, but you're
Yep.
saying that gets you your sticker.
That gets you your sticker, yes.
So it's all in New York. If you're a New York resident, it's all one package.
No, in New York, you have to get the voucher from a club, or through a club, or through our online membership
Right.
system.
Right.
And then you go to the DMV to register, or you can mail in your renewals to the DMV for registration.
And you get your sticker for your sled
They mail it to us.
from the motor vehicle.
Right, you get that from
And
the
that's
DMV.
where your discount goes. If you can provide that you proof that
Proof of
you're a
membership.
member,
Yeah.
your registration goes down.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Talking about increased workloads, I'd like to introduce Ann Odell, our general manager, the one that gets to answer the phone from 6 o'clock in the morning to 2 o'clock in the morning during snow season.
I'm the one walking around with their coffee.
We had, sorry. We went to a virtual office concept a few years back to save money. We used to have an office up in Long Lake, New York. We finally figured out that nobody wants to come visit the nice office, so why bother having one? So we have a virtual office. So Ann works at her home, Dominic, our executive director, works out of his home, and Jim Rolfe, our trail coordinator, works out of his home. So Ann gets called night and day from members going, "I gotta have my voucher right now."
Right now.
Even though it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm not sure about other states, but we don't have any 24/7 GFPs. But so some of the problems we came in, increased workloads on clubs and on the NISA staff. Of course, the bonus was increased money coming into the clubs and to NISA. Confusions at county-operated DMVs. New York State, most DMVs are operated by the county clerk. They answer to the state DMV in Albany, but they are separate entities that work for the county, not the state. And so many of us went and talked to our DMV offices, our DMV clerks, about how to do this, and many did not, which is part of the joys of a volunteer organization. Can't withhold their paycheck if they don't do their job. Joining online, one of the things that we ran into was what we call voucher vultures. We did this to increase club membership, try to increase volunteerism and participation, but we have those folks that don't want anything to do it. They just buy their voucher to get their discount. So we have problems getting any kind of volunteer work out of them, but on the other hand, we have more money in our coffers because they've joined our clubs. Joining in person at the club level, if they issue a blank voucher, they have to actually hand jam the members' information into the membership system. My club is the 9th largest club in New York State. Not this season, but the previous season, we had 984 member families. I'm the club membership administrator. I'd get a pile like this, and I'd have to hand jam them into the system and interpret everybody's handwriting and that kind of thing, which was a lot of fun, let's put it that way. Reconciling monies, when monies would come in through the online system, when people would join by credit card, NISA, in turn, every month would cut a check to every club in New York State and send them a check back with those monies, after deducting a portion of the monies that covered credit card fees, and NISA would also take our portion of credit card fees also off our $5. It would come out to $4.62 or something like that is what we get. Then we'd have to send that money to the club. So you constant monthly reconciliation of funds, getting the funds back to the club was hard, but we had a great treasurer who did this and did it well every year. But that's one of the added problems and one of the added workloads when you do this kind of thing. Once the members are there, it's up to the clubs to keep them. I can't tell you how many times I had clubs come to me and say, well, you got us the members and you got us the money, but how come you can't make them work and do volunteer stuff for us? Okay, at some point in time, you have to take ownership of those members, and that's what we've been pushing. And we do a volunteerism seminar. If anybody would like a copy of the volunteer seminar presentation, I'd be more than happy to email it to you. So benefits, more money at the club level for operations and capital purchases, more money at the state level for projects, legislation, and public relations, more leverage at the state level when dealing with the government. When I walk in the door and say I represent over 150,000 snowmobilers in New York State, people listen. And now we also have the ability to communicate with the vast majority of riders in New York State, which was something we never had that ability to do before. We entered into a contract with Supertrax International. We had gotten out of the print magazine business because we couldn't afford it. We entered into a contract last year with Supertrax International. They produced 2 copies of our editorial content in the Supertrax New York Snowmobiler magazine. And they mailed one to every person, every member in our association with a Supertrax magazine in the same package, which helped them increase their circulation, which allows them to charge more money for advertising. That cost us exactly $0. $0. This is a benefit that works out with them, it works out with us, and we're able to actually speak to our membership. If anybody's interested in learning more about that, I'd be happy to talk to them about how we work that and who to contact at Supertrax. Drawbacks. Clubs tend to buy bigger, larger, and more lavish items, which exposes them to the economy and the weather, like this year. NISA budget, while not wholly dependent on membership, suffers the vagaries of the season. In other words, again, we're short 17,500 members across the state, which impacts our budget to the tune of $80,000 some odd dollars. It does not always translate into more volunteers. Many members are not local. We have riding areas like Tug Hill. We have people that live in New Jersey. We have people that live in Long Island, New York City, that join the clubs up there, but they only go up there to ride. So they're not able to go up and do volunteer work when the club actually needs work pre and post season. Where we want to go from here, we want to get non-members into clubs. We still have generally, what, about 15,000, Ann? About 15,000 non-member registrations each year, which is a significant input into the trail fund. But we'd still like to get those folks into clubs because it allows us to communicate with them and allows them to be part of snowmobiling instead of just a snowmobiler. Bill?
So do those 15,000 then pay the higher registration fee?
They pay $100, $10 of that goes to DMV, the 90 of that goes into the trail fund.
Okay.
So it's a double-edged sword. If we put them in the clubs, the trail fund goes down, but the club coffers go up.
Not proportionate.
Pardon?
Not proportionate.
No.
So you got another 15,000 freeloaders in there that.
But on the other hand, though, this year with the way our grant system works, if you get a grant from the state, trail fund for $100,000, you have to justify $100,000 worth of expenses minimum to be able to receive those full monies.
Get that grant.
This year, we have clubs, we have areas that are $300,000 and more in grants that they have no idea how, and the grant season is closed and we're waiting to get a report back from the state about how many people did not make their grant this year. With membership, with more membership, that member money goes directly into your database and you don't ever have to give it back to anybody. Sir?
Yeah, Gary, you said that you have an online membership application.
Yep.
Do you have any data that indicates that the members are joining? You said you have some members from New York City and they ride upper tier.
We can sort the database by zip code, by town, by county, by club membership. It basically comes out in an Excel workbook.
Have you done any research into finding out whether or not the members actually join clubs in the areas that they ride?
No, we really haven't. We haven't tried to extrapolate that data. We did do an economic impact study, and it actually categorized that we got about a return rate of 6 or 7 or 8%, which I'm told is pretty good on the surveys that were sent out, and that people talk to riding days in specific areas in New York State. But I don't have those figures with me.
Club memberships are all the same price?
Generally, the minimum is $25. There are some clubs that have said, you know what, we don't need that many members, so we're going to make our dues $35. But minimum $25. That way, nobody cuts anybody else's throat.
And have you find any research to where people are hunting for the cheapest deal and joining the clubs with the lowest rate?
I haven't seen any evidence of that. Ann?
I get some phone calls that say, the club in my area charges $30, how come they charge more? And I'll just say, well, go down that list, there's 240 clubs, you can join any club you want, right? And to speak to, do people join where they ride, we have about, I'd say 10% of the membership that will join more than one club. And they typically belong to a social club in the lower part of the state that doesn't get so much snow, and to a club where they're riding further north. So they join 2 clubs, they're giving twice the amount of money, 3 clubs, 4 clubs. Quite a few, Ginny right here lives in one area of the state, participates in her local club, but also joins where she has a camp. So you see a percentage of people that do that.
Yes?
What's your percentage of online memberships? Purchase online?
About 55%, and it goes up each year. The system's been in existence since 2006. The first year, not a whole lot of participation. People are not thrilled with putting their credit card info in online. But as time goes on and we're all
online service, the turn should be less than a week. By the time if you go online and register your sled in New York State, you'll get paperwork from the state. You should get it within a week.
A lot of people, if it snows on Thursday, they want to ride on Saturday. Is there any way, can they use like a printed receipt on the online system?
Yes, the voucher that I had displayed a little while ago.
Not from the New York, but from the state.
Yes.
So I can go riding and hand it, if I get pulled over by, I don't know, if it's game warden, EPO, whatever law enforcement you have, can I
Yes,
hand them
that
that?
is an acceptable form of registration, I'm being told. The online system that they just built, they just released it this year, I haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
It's that, we were told about it in March, that they were rolling this out.
So the way it works though, you get your voucher online, and and you print it off, there must be a number on the voucher, then you can go right back online and go and get your motor vehicle.
Yeah,
Is
you
that
have to go to, I think it's nysdmv.com.
Right, but it can be in almost the same city.
Yes. Yes. One of the things we want to pursue now, we've identified that we've been losing sleds over the years, especially older sleds. They've been disappearing out of the system. We have no vintage legislation. We have no vintage registration criteria or anything like that. So one of the things we want to do is to build a vintage registration or a discounted vintage registration. For example, one of my club members is a vintage rider. He has 19 sleds. He registers 3. So we're trying to find ways to bring those sleds back out of the garage and into the fold. I mean, as most of you guys know, you guys and gals know, that if you have a 1960s or early 1970s sled, you're not going to ride it 150 miles a day. That's not going to happen. So we're trying to find ways to forward legislation and start that whole legislative process over again in New York to find a way to help the vintage sled owners and for vintage registrations. And I'll count those numbers whenever they come in as part of our registration package. One of the problems, it opens the door to everyone else that wants their own class of registration, including ice fishermen, sportsmen, trappers, hunters, etc. DMV doesn't like more classes of registration. And one of the things that I mentioned earlier is that the DMV gets to sign off on legislation. The agencies that are affected get to sign off on legislation. So we're trying to make them happy at the same time. So what do we do with all these members? We've had to expand our thinking. We've had permanent staff hires. When we first started this, we had 1 permanent staff, our executive director, and a part-time office worker with him in Long Lake. We now have currently a full-time staff of 3 and a part-time staff during the registration season that helps Ann out and answers the phone the other, I don't know,
Other 6 hours.
the other 6 hours of the day that she doesn't cover. Communication alternatives, magazines, as I told you with Super Tracks, get somebody else to pay for it. That saved us the last year, the year that we stopped publishing print magazine, the organization that we were working with wanted all of the ad revenue from New York State and an additional $65,000. There's no way we could do that. We worked this with Super Tracks, we pay nothing. They do the ad sales and ad revenue in New York State, and we pay nothing. We provide ad content, and calls them and yells at them until they make it right, and then it gets sent to all our members for free.
You still have to generate the ads.
Pardon?
You still have to generate the advertising.
No, they actually asked me to give them a name in New York State, and I gave them a name, a lady that's done some work for us on the side, and she went out and sold ads for Super Tracks completely separate from our business. Completely separate.
Do you have, is this your organization's newspaper or letter?
This is
there
our,
something else that you do, or is this it right here?
no, we also do, 12 months a year, we do an online magazine. It's a very full and informative magazine, but one of the things we found was that using Google Analytics, and Ann can correct me, but I think we had something somewhere between a 15 and 18,000 click rate opening the email and about a 10,000 member online magazine. So we were talking to 1 out of every 6 or 7 of our members.
Can a non-member get in and,
Sure.
is there a website or a,
Yeah, nysnowmobiler.com.
I'm sorry,
nysnowmobiler.com.
In dealing, communicating online, when you started capturing the email addresses, you're getting through the online registration,
We
correct?
also had a sign-up portal also for people that wanted to sign up voluntarily to become, to receive email news and email announcements from the New York State Snowmobiling
And how did
Association.
you tell them about that?
We, word of mouth, we told the clubs, we told the district directors, we made sure it was word of mouth. Then we had people talking about, hey, did you see that magazine? What magazine? And it was just kind of a word of mouth thing. The problem is in announcing something online about an online thing, you're only gonna
Right,
hit those people
right.
that are online.
Right.
And
Actually, we had an insert one year that went out of people's snowmobile registration renewals. It was like an old punch card size thing. And that did give them the website and told them to look there for the magazines and so on, and encouraged them to give the email address also.
Do you know of your total membership, how many email addresses you are
Oh,
mailing to?
yes, I've got about 50,000
So it's
out
about,
of 65, so.
that's great.
And
Yeah.
by the way, we used to buy a service to do those emails because you can't send out 50,000 emails and not be labeled as spam. So we ended up buying a service, and then Climb USA, said, we'd like to go ahead and pay for that if you'll put a link on your format of the emails that go out, and they have been paying for it since. And they're willing to do that for every state organization, so if you're not taking advantage of that now, you should.
did you get any feedback on non-hard copy of this, online magazine, online newsletter? I mean, it seems like we seem to get a group that's saying, hey, we gotta address the people that aren't online. I mean, what did you have that issue, or?
Well,
how did you
looking
handle
at we made some assumptions based on the Google Analytics that we're able to pull from each magazine's results and how many people actually open the magazine and that kind of thing. And one of the things that I said, and I don't like to be crude, but I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to take my laptop to the bathroom with me. There's a New York Snowmobiler magazine sitting in the rack, though, there, and it will always be there. One of the problems with an online magazine is once somebody clicks the X, it's gone. Once you click the X, it's gone. But a print magazine is going to be there until somebody actually throws it away. Or since we're all green people here, we throw it in a recycling bin, right?
But I think the issue I was trying to get at is, when you made that decision, did you have much input from the other side saying we don't want it? Or there's a group of people that say we wanna continue some type of hard copy, and you made a decision?
We had people saying that. The problem is that
How do you handle it?
our dues was $5 per member family. And the money we would have paid would have been $1 out of that $5 per member family just to keep, I think it was, were we down to four issues? And that would have only been 4 issues.
Okay,
So,
so
we
you
couldn't-
cost justified it is basically what.
Yeah, we said we can no longer support doing that because there's just no money. And the only alternative would be to go to our membership and say, hey, we need more money. And we've done that before, and luckily some of us escaped, some of them are still hanging from trees in central New York. But
You said you do 2 issues through Snow Tracks?
through Super Tracks, we
Through
do
Super Tracks,
2
sorry.
issues, and our mutual goal is to work to have a New York Snowmobiler magazine in every issue of Super Tracks, which is 4 per year. That's our mutual goal, but
So
has
almost
to make,
basically back to where you were down to.
right, but it has to make fiscal sense for them. We started with 2 this year, and it worked out
Right.
really well. So, and we're gonna do 2 again this coming year, and hopefully after that, sometime after that, we'll move to 3 and then move to 4. But they have to be able to sell the ad space to make it fiscally make sense.
And that's generated off your membership list?
Yes.
So even your out-of-staters get your
Yes.
version?
Yes, everybody, since it's an official, our privacy policy allows members to opt out of mailings that are non-official mailings. Our our magazine is an official mailing of the New York State Snowmobile Association, so everybody gets one. One of the things we've looked at with the growth of membership is alternative sources of revenue. We've gone, we have several affinity arrangements. We have an affinity arrangement with Nationwide Insurance. We have one with Liberty Mutual Insurance. We have one with a corporation called Card Partners. We offer the New York State Snowmobile Association Visa Platinum card, through which you can put your own snowmobile picture on, which we actually get a revenue stream back from that. We just stood up the New York State Snowmobile Association travel website, which is hosted by somebody else, but we get a revenue stream back while providing discounted travel to our members, cruises, hotel rentals, that kind of thing. Our members have made it pretty clear that they're not interested in giving us more dues money, so we've had to find alternative sources to fund the activities that we do and the programs that we run. Bill?
You said you have affinity with Liberty Mutual and Nationwide?
Yes.
You get,
No.
residual returns?
Yeah.
From both?
Yeah, actually we do.
Based on policies?
Yeah, actually, Liberty Mutual said, well, you have to get rid of Nationwide if you want to have an affinity agreement with us, and our answer was no. And so they said, oh, okay. We may have some problems down the road competitive-wise with Nationwide and Liberty Mutual. We may have some issues down the road, but we'll deal with those when they arise. But the money, I believe the last I heard, our revenue streams from affinity agreements and that kind of thing was about $70,000 a year.
Is it like 1 or 2%?
It depends on which affinity agreement we're talking about. So it's but it is a significant shot in the arm for our association. And I've told our membership is every time I ran for an election within the association that my job is to kick the increasing dues can down the road. That's the last thing I want to do, especially in a recession.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Didn't the president say we're not in a recession anymore? See, membership discounts. We have entire pages of membership discounts, everything from hotel rooms to car rentals to bed and breakfasts, that kind of thing. That the criteria is that these discounters provide something to our memberships that's not available to the guy that walks in off the street. We do our annual convention. This year we did it in Lake Placid. I was playing the Lake Placid video earlier. We usually have anywhere from 600 to 800 people attending our convention, which between the money that we raise through various revenue streams and stuff, and corporate sponsorships and that kind of thing, we pay for that out of hand. We try to request feedback often from our clubs and members to see how we can shape things better, how we can do things better. Some of this feedback we receive is, you should give us memberships for free, or since there was no snow, you should give us all our membership money back. When you ask for feedback, you get feedback. We also done strategic planning sessions a couple of times. That's where we reshape the way our staff is set up and their job responsibilities. We turned our executive director into an honest-to-God executive director instead of general manager, chief cook, and bottle washer, and janitor. Sir?
What's the split in your registrations in-state versus out-of-state members?
Oh, you want me to answer?
I'm gonna ask Steve, who knows everything.
I would say about 15% out of state, maybe a little more than that. And believe it or not, from states you wouldn't think of, like California and Arizona. I don't know. The southern states, Georgia, Florida, everywhere. Not just the adjoining or northeast or America states. Everywhere. Even a few from Sweden.
So 15% out of state.
Approximately.
Here, see if anybody can relate to this. This is a story of 4 people named everybody, somebody, anybody, and nobody. job to be done and everybody was asked to do it. Anybody could have done it, but nobody did it. Somebody got angry about that because it was everybody's job. Everybody thought anybody could do it, but nobody realized that everybody wouldn't do it. Consequently, it wound up that nobody told anybody, so everybody blamed somebody.
Three times fast.
I thought that was very apropos to Snowmobile associations. I know it works, but for us, it's very. So what do you need? If you want to implement this kind of thing, and where's my Wisconsin folks? Raise your hands. If you want to implement this kind of thing, you need a consensus from your clubs to move forward. A great lobbying firm helps. Somebody that, once again, knows where all the doors leads in your Capitol building. Someone who can write legislation. Sponsors. Depends on how your state government works, but you need sponsors for, we need sponsors for legislation. We've got a lot of upstate folks, and we're forwarding our new economic impact study that says we're an $860 million a year economic impact in New York State. We're giving that to our legislators, because they look at that 8% sales tax thing, and they like that. Need to get concurrence from affected government agencies. Get them on board early so they don't become speed bumps down the road for you. Need to have some type of system for membership tracking. We ended up developing, we had a couple of false starts, but we ended up developing a membership system that works pretty well for us right now, and we're looking at moving on to the next generation of a membership system that we can do more with the data that we get. Club agreement on minimum dues, again, you don't want one club trying to slash the other club's throat just to get members. So you want to have a minimum dues rate. You have to have staff willing to work long hours, especially for the first few years, especially during the season. If you have somebody that works 9 to 4, fire them now. That will not work. Ann puts in far too many hours, and to me it's criminal what we pay her when you break it out on a per hour basis.
It's like 40 cents.
Yeah.
They take tax out of that.
You have to have members that are willing to keep the pressure on their legislators and your governor. And you have to have some kind of arm to enforce violations of the law, forged documents, no registrations, etc. In New York State, if you're caught without a registration, right now it's a $200 fine, and $100 of that goes to the state trail fund once it's collected, which is a great idea. And I got to tell you, if the hours that we put in, I still join my club and I still register my sled. So if I see somebody on the trail that's not registered, they're going to get visited by the cops. Plain and simple.
Give them that example. Bar example you talked about last night. You were at a bar and 6 had nothing.
Oh yeah, yeah. My daughter and I went to deliver some maps to one of the local watering holes, and there was like 20 sleds in the parking lot, and 6 of them had no registrations on. Miraculously, the police arrived about 10 minutes later. I don't know how that happened.
$600. Must be they serve donuts at that bar.
Yep. One of the other things you need is a huge amount of patience. I don't know about anybody else, but the legislative process works at its own speed, much like molasses running uphill in the winter. Does anybody have any more questions? That's pretty much all of my presentation. Does anybody have any more questions that I can answer? By the way, I will be out in the Speakers Unplugged breakout area. We do have a booth. Be happy to talk to you about revenue streams, that kind of thing. For those that are interested in state or province-wide liability insurance policy, our insurer from the Franklin Case Agency is sponsoring tonight's hospitality suite, and he's going to be in with the growing business memberships or business memberships session this afternoon. Sir?
What was the registration fee prior to the implementation?
$45.
45?
It was $45 for registration. We raised it to $100 and then discounted it for members back down to $45. So So that made our members, that made our people that were already members happy that we didn't raise their rates.
How long did it take you to implement this from your normal registration to this particular process?
From the time the legislation was signed, it was about 18 months, I think, by the time when the season came that we implemented it.
Well, that was when when it was signed, but how long did you have to work on it to get it to the legislatures and get them interested in letting you do this?
We started in 2004, we implemented it in 2006.
2 years,
So,
and then another 18 months.
And a lot of that depends on how your legislation works, whether they're a 12-month group of.
Yeah, well, ours is 12 months.